Wybalina Farm at Billy Nutchell in the hills behind Byron Bay. So what we're going to look at is the different products that we're using. We have some hay, we have some green waste, we have some fresh cow manure, we have some minerals, we have some seaweed, and we're going to put it all together in a BioVital compost pile. The BioVital point of difference is like any good compost. BioVital is a good compost. The added point of difference is that it has a high diversity of beneficial microorganisms that we use for restoring degraded land. We're going to make a wire net for making the compost, and when we cut it into length, it's going to be a 6-meter length or about 20 feet long. So when we roll this out, we want to make sure it doesn't spring back and hit us in the face, and we cut it carefully, and that we are very aware of using tools and have safety in mind when we do this whole process. So what we're going to do now is we're going to turn it over. That's a combination of brown and green material. Anything that's harvested before it forms and drops its seeds is considered green material. Hay, this is sold as hay, is considered a green material because it was harvested full of sugars. Okay, it hasn't. Tie this together with tie wire, and we're just going to make it really simple because we're going to be taking this apart 3 or 4 times, because this process takes actually 4 or 5 turns, so, and about 8 to 10 weeks depending on how it's managed and what materials we're using. We take it apart about every 10 days and turn it. So this is an inoculum compost. This is used to make compost tea. This is a soil probiotic, and like I said, it has all the benefits of any good compost. It's the BioVital point of difference is that it has a high diversity of beneficial plant and soil microorganisms. This is a 3-to-1 ratio. So it's 3 high carbon, it's 2 green waste, and it's 1 high nitrogen. So this is a combination of green and high carbon. This is more green, and that's definitely high nitrogen. So we're going to use 6 measures of this as our base layer, and 6 measures we're using the wheelbarrow for measurement. And because this is such a fluffy mix, we're going to fill the wheelbarrow right up. Okay. So that's good. Okay, so that's 1 measurement. We want this nice fine spray because the particles of water stick to the material better. Each layer needs to be moist. We're looking for 45 to 55% moisture, and it's difficult to tell the moisture for the first few days because some of the material is quite dry. But after 3 or 4 days, when you grab a handful from the inside of the compost pile, you should have a very wet hand, or you should be able to squeeze a single drop of water out of it. If you can just about squeeze a drop of water out of it, that's pretty much 50% moisture content, and that's pretty perfect. So we just stir it up with a bit of water. That way we can pour it on. This is approximately 4 parts green, but we use a little bit less green because there's quite a bit of green in this material, so we need a little bit less green in this. There's also a bit of brown in that material, so you get used to compensating. If we don't get our recipe correct, we don't have to panic, because it can breathe and the moisture's correct. So it's not going to get over 65 degrees when we start losing our beneficial organisms. When we get over 70 degrees Celsius, we start losing our beneficial organisms, so we definitely don't want to do that. So I'm continually watering this because it's not running off, and the hay and the green waste is absorbing it just fine with this light mist. This is very pure cow manure. There's no straw in it, there's no sawdust in it, it's very pure cow manure. Canadian kelp is farmed kelp. It's the growing tips of kelp, where quite a bit of kelp sold or seaweed sold is not pure kelp, and it's beach collected. So this is the growing tip, which means it's high in auxins and gibberellins, which are growing plant stimulation. Everything we do at Trust Nature is under farm shed conditions. Okay, we trust nature to do the appropriate digestion of this organic matter into high value compost. So if you give us a half a bucket of kelp, we'll shake that on. And notice how that hay has just disappeared down. This carbon material, this green carbon material, straw and hay mixed together, has now, the whole thing, we have 6 measures of straw and hay, we have 4 measures of green waste, we have 2 measures of manure, and we're only a quarter full or a fifth full. So again, remember principle 1, the diversity of inputs ensures the diversity of microorganisms. When we make biofertilizer, we put a bit of biofertilizer on the compost because the organisms that associate with biofertilizer will be in the compost that way. So we're getting used to what a measurement is, so we don't have to be so specific. We've already measured how much a wheelbarrow holds. This is a net composting process, and we use the net so that the oxygen can diffuse into the compost stack so that the microbes can stay alive and breathe. The mesh size is 50 millimeters or 2 inches by 75 mils or 3 inches, and it's 1200 high and it's a 6 meter length. And then we fold the top over so it's a double thickness, so it gives it strength and rigidity. We're mixing the molasses with water, so it's going to flow through into the compost stack and mix together pretty well. So that's what we want. We want it to mix together pretty well. Notice that we're not shredding anything. Okay, we're not grinding anything, we're not shredding anything. And what I want to make sure of is that none of the material is a larger diameter than my thumb. So this should be fine, and this should compost just neatly. Good to give it a mix. There's lots of water in it, so we can just splash it on. This is dessert for microorganisms. They just go crazy for this. At least 1/3 of this is going to be microorganisms. And those organisms protect your productive plants, they restructure your soils, and they deliver nutrients to your plants. So we're reducing input costs by 50 to 70%, which is remarkable. And we're building fertility as we're improving production. Very few agricultural systems are able to do that. So we're redefining sustainable agriculture as our ability to build fertility as we improve production. Remember, when we make our first turn, everything gets mixed together. It's only this layered system when we first make it so that it can breathe and so we can correct the recipe if the temperatures aren't correct on the first turn. No, this is good. Hard to do with, I suppose. No. If we throw a couple of dead chickens in here, the dogs aren't going to get into it in the first few days. After the 3rd day, it's going to be 55 degrees Celsius, so it's too hot to put your hand in, so nothing's going to bother it. You don't get rats in this. You don't get smells from this, okay? So what we've done at Trust Nature is created the biovital system that takes the mysteries out of these complex sciences and puts them to very simple, easy to apply forms. Simple, but very specific, okay? So we want to monitor this in a very specific manner. And you're going to manage this like a living organism. You're going to raise this compost into its remarkable complexity, okay? Because it's an inoculant that supports your beneficial plants, your productive plants, and restructures your soil microbially. The intention is that we can give our grandchildren the same fertile soils that our grandparents had. Compost is a concentrate. More than 30% is living microorganisms. The balance is organic matter, humus, and minerals that are plant available. So it's a very rich and powerful rejuvenation material for degraded land.